And I saw this on the back of a toilet door in a youth hostel in Tasmania, Australia. And it was a Bob Dylan quote. It was scratched on into the door. And it said, "A man is a success when he wakes up in the morning and goes to bed at night and does what he wants to in between."
Hit it! That's what I'm talking about. Wait!
Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.
Trav, first off, thanks so much for joining us here on the podcast, and just stoked to have you on The Art of Awesome.
Nick, absolutely stoked to be on, mate, and g'day from Australia.
Well, thanks so much. So, Trav, you are known simply as the bucket list guy. You're a coach, keynote speaker. You've spoken on many stages, including a TED Talk and the TED stage as well. You're also an author. You've written your book called My Bucket List Blueprint, which I want to jump into later. But can you just kind of go back to the start and tell us a little bit of how the whole bucket list thing began for you in the first place?
Yeah, I guess I grew up, and we're just talking offline there. I grew up, surfing, surf lifesaving, lifeguarding and stuff like that, and swimming down here in a place called Ocean Grove, Victoria, which is a state of Australia in the southern part of Australia. So I'm about an hour and a half out of Melbourne. So straight out my window, I can see the surf. I'm about 500 meters away from the surf. So I've surfed my whole life, and I was pretty much a jock, as you say in America, and that led me to do a physical education degree. And then in third year uni, I started this thing called personal fitness training back in the early 90s. And I'm a little bit older, mate. So it's back in the early 90s. Started one of the first personal trainers kind of running around Melbourne. So I moved out of Ocean Grove, went to uni up in Melbourne, started personal training in Melbourne. Grew that business from one client to tens of thousands of clients. First to franchise personal training studios in Australia. Had a whole bunch of personal trainers working under that brand that I created. And now nearly over 2 million personal training sessions. One of the biggest companies in Australia doing personal fitness training. One of the pioneers as well. But there was a bit of a breakdown before breakthrough moment, I guess you could call it, and the warts and all kind of story of where, just life, business stuff, legal stuff, some toxic people sort of came into my life, and there was a bit of a downward spiral. Went into some mild depression, albeit mild, it was mild compared to what I've heard since. But instead of going on heavy antidepressants, which is kind of like a Band-Aid effect, right? I decided to get to the nuts and bolts what I was going through with my psychology. I didn't want to kind of sleepwalk through my life. So I found myself in personal development events and walking on fire, hugging it out and high-fiving it with strangers on the weekends, reading all the books, going to the seminars, breaking the arrows, bending the bars, rah-rah, all that. Learnt NLP, positive psychology, a Carnegie principle, life coaching stuff, law of attraction, all that. And I keep learning like you, mate. I just keep on learning. And it was kind of at the end of that, and I worked through some stuff. It was kind of at the end of that, a friend of mine said, why don't you teach this shit, Trav? I went, light bulb moment. And and it helped me sort of compartmentalize why I was doing this in the first place. It was to teach other people, but inadvertently we're sort of coaching ourselves, aren't we? Yeah. But so I put on a talk. There's about 40 people in that initial talk that I did, and I was absolutely shitting myself, and it was a shit talk compared to what I do now. But long story short, it was about halfway through that initial talk, that I started sharing my list to do before I died. I always had one written down since I was 18. And this is only 10 years ago that I did this first kind of public seminar, and it really inspired the group. And I was the only freak in the room that had one of these lists written down, and started sharing it. It inspired people. And then at the end of it, Joe, one of the clients that were there, said, "Oh, how's this list to do before you die stuff? It's really got people thinking. It's like a bucket list. You're like the bucket list guy." And then I went, ping, light bulb moment. And this is 10, maybe even 12 years ago, when the whole online world was starting to really happen, online businesses and, that for me represented freedom. I read the Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week way too early on, and I just went, I'd love to run shit from a hammock one day, because I had all these commercial leases from the gyms, and I'm just like burden. And I'm like, oh God, that'd be freedom, travel the world and work online would be amazing. Now it's just what we do, right? Yeah. But back then it was really a pioneering foreign concept. But I thought, one of the early movers, so I thought, oh, you know what? The bucket list, went home and registered the bucketlistguy.com with real no idea how I was going to monetize it. I knew I love helping people. I love coaching. Speaking for me was the big domino that I had to push over in my life at that time, and still do, that affected a lot of other areas of my life, through confidence and getting over depression, helping others, all that sort of thing. So I knew I was going to be a speaker sort of out of the gate, but I had no idea. 10 years later, here we are. I'm still running around the world as the bucket list guy. And thank God Joe called me the bucket list guy and registered the domain name that was available. And, mate, you're in sport, you understand you got to stamp your authority. So when I was registering the domain name, I went on to Google and went, who's like the Mac Daddy? Who's like the king of bucket lists in the world? Oh, look, no one. So fuck it, I'll call myself the world's #1 bucket list expert. And I did, and it stuck.
That's awesome.
And here we are. I'm on the Nick Troutman podcast.
That's super cool. And there's a flurry of things within that story that I find really amazing. One where you just kind of, and I've talked about this in the past on the podcast, but when opportunity arises, sometimes you just have to jump at it, even if you're not ready yet. Sometimes you might have visions and ideas and dreams down the road of like, oh, maybe one day I'd like to be a speaker. Maybe one day I'd like to be an author, all these kinds of things. And then somebody calls you the bucket list guy. You got it, and the light bulb goes off and everything. You jumped at that opportunity and ran with it, instead of thinking ooh, that's a great idea. Maybe in 5-10 years I'll do something with it.
Let me overthink that and not do anything about it.
Yeah.
No, when and I guess I've been in business, and I guess I was at a time in my life where I was looking to, one, create an online business, two, to allow me the freedom to travel around the world and do my bucket list, because that is my #1 priority in life, because I say, no matter what we do for a living, I say a bucket list is a tangible life plan, where our career plan or our business plan should fit into our life plan and not be the other way around. So I've always had this list to do before I die that's morphed into now this bucket list, and developed a whole life philosophy around it. And I go into companies go into big organizations and talk about this, tangible life plan in the form of a bucket list. And people are like, oh my God, it gives them such a more of expansive why to get out of bed in the morning, But one thing a lot of people don't know, Nick, is this is all based on positive psychology, which is the science of happiness, or the psychology of happiness. It's all about not just ticking cool stuff off, and then that's all well and good, but it's really about helping people experience more meaning, purpose, and fulfillment in their life, and be happier. Because let's face it, the stats are scary on the opposite side of depression, anxiety, suicides, youth suicides, your overprescription of antidepressants. We've even got this thing now called the loneliness epidemic, which is a real thing, which is the adverse effect of social media. So that these sort of statistics are climbing, and they're climbing at alarming rates. You go through COVID on top of that, and you got a cesspool of mental health issues around the world, which is what we're experiencing right now. So this whole bucket list, I guess, philosophy is my way to combat that, to challenge that, to maybe change the narrative, change the conversation, give people maybe some a bunch of lights, bucket list lights at the end of the tunnel kind of thing. But for me back then, it just felt right. It was a values alignment, and I'd done a lot of stuff around values. So adventure, fun, helping others, health, these are all top values of mine, that if I'm not living congruently to those values, which a lot of people are not. You are, but a lot of people, as we know, are not. It's this thing called cognitive dissonance, and that's when you're not in alignment with who you really are, and it creates pain. And I dare say it probably creates things like cancer. Where you're just unhappy and you're just not aligned with your purpose. And so I mentor a lot of other speakers and a lot of other thought leaders around this concept, and help them find their bucket list guy if they're going to go online, and find their sort of their lens that they can maybe run a business and maybe direct their life through. So for anyone looking in that direction, I always say pick a highway, then pick a lane, and then just own that lane.
I love that. There's a couple things in there that you said that I find really interesting. One, when you're talking about how essentially the bucket list is like your, whether you call it life goals, overall life plan, it's essentially like the roadmap to that best version of your life that everybody dreams of, whether you dream of as a kid or whether you're dreaming of it currently. And I never really thought about it until right now. You said that you had a bucket list when you were 18. I look back and I've had a lot of lists of life goals of mine. I've never, and actually that's not true. I've written them down regularly as just, goals. I've never written it down with the term bucket list. And I have been fortunate to achieve a fair amount of them. And so therefore I constantly am creating new goals. And I love that you have broken it down where it's a bucket list, because it also goes back to something else I've talked about in the past, but where it's like baby steps, where if you're sitting at home and you might be depressed or just you're in, the bottom of the barrel and life's hard right now, and you've got this vision of your ultimate life that you want, it might be overwhelming to see yourself like, it's so far away. How do I get there? But if you write it down as a bucket list, or you list it out that way, then it's like, oh, I can just, chip them off one step at a time.
Yeah, baby steps. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot more achievable.
Yeah. And it's people can relate to bucket lists actually more than goals, because it's so individual, and they can be so small and so big and so varied. Whereas most people write down goals, they're all these achievement goals of maybe income and job and weight and all that sort of thing. But the fact is allowing people to write their goals, bucket list, whatever. But the fact is that first things first, people are going to write stuff down. You get a 42% more likelihood of goals actually manifesting, of actually coming to fruition, if you just write stuff down. Remember these things called like pens and paper? Remember that old school? Like there's research that suggests that if you actually write stuff down, go old school, analog. If you write stuff down, it's a more conscious process versus even typing into your phone.
Yeah.
Most people don't even write their goals down, mate. Like I can go into a company and do, hey guys, write down your goals, and it's like I discovered fucking fire. And it was all, but the point being is you might as well write something down. But what the problem is what's easy to do is easy not to do.
Right.
No, I worry about my bucket. I've got a bucket list. Yeah, it's up in my head. All right. Well, you've also got a to-do list. And guess which one gets done first on a day-to-day basis? And you go, 10, 5, 10, 20, 50, all your life, years, just on the hamster wheel, on your to-do list. But it's not until something traumatic or dramatic happens to you're a loved one, or someone gets given a use-by date, like the whole bucket list movie. That's why it's got a negative connotation, or possible negative connotation. But it's not until something traumatic or you get given a use-by date and you're suddenly reprioritizing your bucket list.
Yeah.
The whole movie, the bucket list movie, is shit, because it's about two blokes who get given a cancer diagnosis and then they write a bucket list. Right. And I'm like, hey, dickhead, that's a little bit late.
Yeah. Yeah.
How about we should have thought about this before you're on death's door.
Mm-hmm.
But no, unfortunately, human beings are like this, right? So Human beings have to wait until they get smacked in the face or that level of pain for them to move their ass and reprioritize. So what my whole mission is, and now we've got certified bucket list coaches around the world as well, all teaching this philosophy or our programs, and it's all about helping waking people up before they get given a use by date, and giving them a structure and a framework.
Yeah, it's amazing, and I love how you're saying wake up before you get put on. Like it's easy, and you hear it all the time that, you know, people that are about to die or that get given like 3 months to live, 6 months to live, all of a sudden life becomes, you know, now not all of a sudden, they go through the whatever it is, the 6 stages, you go through denial and all that stuff. And then eventually once you come through with acceptance, then life is bright again because you realize, well, I've got, you know, so many days, I'm not going to waste it. I'm going to take full advantage. Like what you're saying though, why wait until you've got that and you've only got, why couldn't we all live like that every day? And I think that's the gist of what this bucket list is live life with intention starting right now. Don't wait.
Because you know, a lot of people are waiting until the perfect time,
right?
You know, or someday to come around, and there is no someday. And I encourage people to, you know, just take some time out of their life to work on their life, and not take this thing for granted. You know, we've got the average age of death is around 80 years of age, and you know, most of the people I talk to are halfway there. And we really don't know when that use by date is. I'm not a motivational speaker, and sometimes I piss people off, but I just talk about reality. And I did in a TED talk, and you know, like you could have heard a pin drop when people realise how little time they've actually got left.
Yeah,
I did that in front of 2,000 people at TEDx Melbourne, and it's pretty. It can be really scary. We don't need more examples of people's, you know, fire going out too early. We've got too many examples all around us every day. So what do we need to do to keep present to that? You know, that's the big question. And, you know, I encourage people to start a bucket list, write it down, get it in action. But it's not just about writing a whole bunch of cool stuff off. It's really about how a person reverse engineers you know, every aspect of their life in order to make this stuff come to fruition. It's the growth of them, and this is what I want people to really get. It's a growth of you on the journey towards these self-imposed destinations. And more importantly, it's about the person, the bigger version of us that exists on the other side of your bucket list ticks, of your bucket list checks. And that's what I want people to get curious and excited about.
Yeah.
You know, because there's a bigger, and that's called our potential, right? And when you see when you experience more of your own potential, that's put a smile on your face, and that is what it's all about. You know, Dalai Lama said, "Happiness is the meaning of life." You know, that's what we're all striving for, and you know, but people are dying at 40 and being buried at 80.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean, it really. Too many people, I think, are doing that exactly, where they get stuck in this rut, I think, of maybe what society tells us to do, where it's like you go work and you forget about living life. And now I guess on the contrary, how do you balance that, like the to-do list with the bucket list, or how do you balance like chasing your passion with, you know, with create, or like making money to support your family or yourself or anything like that?
Well, it's not. Well, here's the thing. Stop saying the word balance. Nothing ever balances. I think the word life balance is an absolute bullshit term that was invented in the 80s to make us all feel better about not working so hard, and it's carried through. So try not to think about work-life balance. Try the concept of defining your own definition of work-life blend.
I like that. Changing the word balance to blend.
Nothing ever balances, does it? Like you're an extreme kayaker, you know, and you know, and you have to travel around the world doing what you do, and you're obsessed about it, you love it, and there's some sacrifices because of that.
Yep.
Okay, so there's no balance there.
No,
That's
I
extreme.
I 100% agree with that. And not only is it not a balance, I think of it almost, and I don't know if it's because I turn everything into a river analogy, but like an ebb and flow. You know what I mean? Where everything is in ebb and flow the whole time. And so in sometimes you're chasing 100% for that passion. And then maybe at other times you have to like, take a brief, moment, go make some money, do whatever else you need to do to come back, and you're constantly trying to ebb and flow through that, the different things that I guess are important in life. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on what you're thinking there, but
yeah, because I do a lot of coaching, especially to like C-level executives and other founders and stuff like that. I constantly saying, well, I don't have all the answers, but just mind your language. Rather than saying or, say say the word and. How can I do that and that and that and that and that? And then you get creative. How can I be obsessed about that and that and that and that? How can I be obsessed about being a great parent? How can I also be obsessed? How can I also, not all, but how can I also be obsessed about being a great speaker and traveling the world and being an awesome partner? How can I have awesome health as well?
yeah.
It's not an or, it's not a sacrifice to bring something else up. How can you create a life? How can you create an ecosystem and a supportive ecosystem around you to have it all?
I love that. I love how it's just a simple change in small little language words where it really changes the whole outcome and the whole vision behind it.
You get resourceful. That's what happens. It's not a matter of resource. It's not a matter of resourceful. It's a matter of resourcefulness. It's a way in which you think. And look at. I love Grant Cardone's book. That's not a. This is an actual bookshelf. It's not like a Zoom background.
Yeah.
I haven't read any of them, but that's not the point. The point that. But I love Grant Cardone's book, Be Obsessed or Be Average. And that was like a real light bulb kind of moment for me. It's like, why can't you be obsessed about everything? Like, what have you got to do to be obsessed about everything? It's just all, see, Nick, like we live in and Gary Vee is a big proponent of this, our attention is our most valuable commodity. What are we paying attention to? And second thing, are we present in that moment? So when I'm around my kids, I want to be present and I want all my attention to be on them. Not like, oh yeah, how was your day at school, guys? My attention not on them. Put down the phone, be obsessed about being the best parent that you possibly can be. Be in the zone when you're throwing yourself off a waterfall.
Yeah.
That kind of attention that you give that when you're throwing yourself off a waterfall with about 100 GoPros strapped to you, why can't you have that level of attention and obsessiveness about every aspect of your life? It's all about just shutting off the other things that are coming into your field of vision.
Yeah. No, I think that's amazing.
And that attention management is really what it's all about. And that's why people are shit at doing that, because people are so distracted so easily. And that's a muscle that we've all built up over time with social media and stuff. But it's the ability to be focused, be fully attentive to everything. There's
a couple things you said there that are just pure gold. One, the fact that we're all distracted very easily right now in just life, how fast things are coming at us, the news, information, social media. There's just a lot of different things that are stealing our attention, and very powerful devices, that influences that are fighting for our attention right now. And then on top of that, that focus and the attention that we're supposed to give to different aspects of life, I think that's amazing too. And I think putting the phone away is very important. Like one of my goals for 2021 actually is to focus and play and give attention to my kids and not have the phone even in the same room. Like don't even be tempted to look at it. Don't look at the phone. Go put it somewhere else and then go play with the kids. And so I think that really is like what you're saying, just focus where that attention goes. And I think it's a lot easier to achieve whatever it is that your goals, your desires, your bucket list.
100%, because, I learned this through baptism of fire. Really, it was when I was depressed. Someone said to me, "Mate, turn off the news."
Yeah.
What do you mean? Because you look at it, you start the day and end the day. We all start the day and end the day with watching it or listening to or getting news into our feeds. And most of it's not good.
Yeah.
So if you actually control your inputs, it's amazing what sort of an effect it can have on your psychology. And just in that sheer, just doing that alone was a big game changer. It's 9:05 a.m. here Friday morning. And what I've done already, I didn't ride this morning, but what I've done already is I've already read, like I wake up at 5 a.m., read a book out loud. My partner and I, we have a coffee in bed and I read out loud. My other bucket list item is to read 52 books in a year, right? So just chapter by chapter, that's what we're doing. So I read out loud. When we don't check our phones, Jim Quick's don't check your phone in the first hour of waking up, and then because you become the bitch to everyone else's agenda.
Yeah,
he didn't say bitch. I put that bit in. Jim Quick wouldn't say that. But the point is, you become everyone else's bitch. But the point is that you set. It gets the neuroplasticity going. It sets the course. It gets you thinking in the right direction. And rather than have your attention on something completely different that's just not supportive of your goals. So I've already written notes in the book. I read a book with a 4-colored pen. I go nuts, and we learn. And so from there, it's like bang, straight into this, and then I haven't even looked at emails. It's 9:07 a.m. Haven't looked at emails. Haven't looked at social media yet. And I've got a global business.
Yeah.
And I've got people barking at me. I know that, but it's the ability. And don't have notifications on, no news or anything like that. This is upside down when I'm talking to you, so I'm not getting distracted.
Yeah, I love that.
Now, trying to train that muscle is fucking hard.
Yeah,
but it's a really good challenge.
I imagine that also takes a lot of focus on your part to try to change those habits.
You got to fill your white space. You got to fill your white space with your stuff. So a blank calendar is terrifying to me. And I know it is for a lot of other people. If I'm not busy doing the things that I want to do, then this is going to take over. This is off topic.
Yeah. No. How do you are you constantly changing your bucket list? Or maybe I'm wrong, but was your reading 52 books, was that on your bucket list when you were 18? I'm guessing maybe not. Yeah.
No. We've got 3 lists. So we've got 3 lists. We've got a future bucket list, which is all the shit that you want to do, right, in your life. And this is not just, there's this, and I'm doing 5 things at the moment on it. There's things that take a lot of time. There's things that don't take any time at all. There's things that you can do, low hanging fruit that you can do immediately. Some, you've got to coordinate others. You've got the future bucket list, and you've also got reverse bucket list. And your reverse bucket list is what you've done in your life. Like that. That's a big gratitude list, and we actually build that out first. So for people that haven't written a bucket list yet, I ask them to write a reverse bucket list first. Think of all the cool stuff that you've done in your life as if it weren't a bucket list all the way along, and just claim it. Put it on your reverse bucket list. And so if you haven't worked it out by now, this is a massive gratitude exercise, and it's one of the pillars of positive psychology is to help people be grateful, because we live in a world where we're constantly chasing the next goal, right? And even writing down goals scares the shit out of a lot of people because of fear of failure, which is the same as fear of success. But a lot of people don't even write down goals because they want to disappoint. They don't want to disappoint themselves, because they might have done it in the past and they haven't achieved it. So, what's easy to do is easy not to do. Oh, I'll get to it. It'll happen. But writing a reverse bucket list first and getting people to pay homage, be thankful, be grateful for all the cool stuff they've done in their life. People are like, oh, it gives them a sense of real fulfillment, of satisfaction. And I'd say, imagine you've done all this good stuff, all these cool things around the world or whatever, or for other people or for yourself, and you've kind of been living by default. Imagine what we could do if we really put some intention behind this and to some design and a framework for the future. And people are like, well, if I've done that by default, imagine if I could do from what I could do if I designed it.
Yeah.
So it's helping people stop living by default and live by design, stop existing and start to live.
Amazing.
And so we carve out a reverse bucket list. So we've got the future bucket list, a reverse bucket list. And basically, whenever you tick something off, it goes onto your reverse bucket list. So I've just finished the book. And the book has, been a massive, it's only this thick, but it took me like 10 years to make it, to publish it. It was just such a mission in terms of procrastination and perfectionism, mate. It was unbelievable. But the point being, that's now on my reverse bucket list. I've done it, so it goes. So the whole thing is find a vehicle that being a job, a career, a business, whatever, that a vehicle that produces our two most valuable commodities, and that is time and money. So get a vehicle that spits out the time flow and the cash flow to allow you to do your bucket list. As simple as that. And find one that doesn't do your head in on a day-to-day basis. How about that?
Amazing.
I think that there's Trav's, philosophy on life. Find a vehicle that doesn't do your head in, that you absolutely love, that spits out the time flow and the cash flow to allow you to do your bucket list, and bang, there's a life well lived. A lot of people can't put all that together. And I think that's the holy grail, right? You find something that you love, you never work a day in your life, which is bullshit. You're always working. And and I don't know who came up with that, but find a vehicle that doesn't do your head in and that you love, and you're of service to people, and it's giving you what you need and what your family need to allow you the resources to do what you want to do. And but a lot of people can't say that. What is 89% of people in America are disengaged in their jobs. That's scary. There's 89% of people that go to their work every single day, just getting a paycheck and going home and not really engaged, couldn't really give a shit. So that's scary, hey?
Yeah.
And that depresses the hell out of me, those sort of stats. And no wonder our mental health, those statistics that I mentioned earlier, are going through the roof.
Yeah.
But we've got a third list. Sorry, we've got a third list. So we've got a reverse bucket list, a future bucket list, and we've also got a fuck-it list. And I did not stutter. So the fuck-it list. So the fuck-it list. I'll give you an example. I had climbed Mount Everest on my bucket list. I went to Mount Everest base camp, advanced base camp in Tibet with my dad years ago. And we got to 6,500 meters, which is the highest place you can walk in the world, before you got to put crampons and get out the ice axes and getting on the rope and start going to Camp 1 on Everest on the Tibetan side.
Yeah.
And I had a shit time because I had altitude sickness. I was I was throwing up. I had headaches, I had a constant hangover, and Dad was fine. Dad, my 68-year-old dad at the time, he was fine, but I was shocking. So and Everest was another 2 kilometers above me, and I'm like, fuck that. I just went, nah. I'm as brave as, but leave it for other people. I don't think I'm going to have a crack at that anymore. So it came off the bucket list and went on to the bucket list. And all the shit that you do, Nick. There's a lot of people. You go and do a talk, and I'm tipping that how you throw yourself off waterfalls and things like that. A lot of people would probably go, "No, fuck that. I don't." I'll put it on that list.
That's awesome. I love how you've simplified it into the 3 different versions. And honestly, I think maybe arguably my favorite would be the past bucket list, because I am a huge proponent and fan of gratitude. I make sure that I'm being grateful every day. I try to do like a walk in the morning and just think of all the things and speak it out loud, all the things that I'm grateful for. Something for 2021 that I've been trying to do too is like a dinner time talk with my kids about what we're grateful for that day, different things like that. But I love how you have written it down as a list where it's like the past bucket list, and just write down everything, because it simplifies it, but it also, it lists it out in a way that you can look at that. And I would imagine, and again, I'm just speaking from my own personal experience, but the list would be fairly long. And I think most people's list, if you really were to write it down, would be quite long. And it would be a quick reminder of just how grateful you are and how amazing life has been. And I imagine
when times are tough, it's good to reflect on that, And I created this for myself. I created this whole thing for myself, for my former depressed self.
Yeah.
And so gratitude is what I started doing, and this whole reverse bucket list sort of came to me in that, and I started sort of speaking about it, which is a great tool to measure whether this stuff is, this intellectual property is worth anything. I started sharing this concept of a reverse bucket list. Everyone was like, "Oh my God, yeah, I've done some really cool stuff," and it lifts everyone, gives them massive. Because people go through troubles, and this is a really, really good tool to help people recalibrate.
Amazing. No, I think it's amazing. It really is. And I just love the simple format of it all. Everybody can go find a notebook, grab a pencil or pen, and just start writing. And write down your past bucket list for gratitude. You write down your future bucket list for your goals. You've got your bucket list for the things that you've maybe attempted and just been like, yeah, screw that, I'm done with that idea. Because we've all had a couple of those for sure. What's next, or what's something that's still on your bucket list? What's next for you, Trav?
I think I might take up whitewater rafting, mate. I think whitewater kayaking. I got that joke wrong, didn't I? Whitewater rafting is a little bit more vanilla, mate. I'm doing a stand-up comedy gig.
Awesome, good for you.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to tell anyone where it is or when it's going to be. Last thing I need is my drunk mates as hecklers in the front row. But I'm a public speaker. I am shitting myself. So I'm doing that. That is on the, because, we kind of set out, I go to all these places, and there's a whole bunch of countries. I've been to a heap of countries, spoken to a lot of places around the world, but, like we've had a third wave of coronavirus kind of coming into Australia. And I start off 2020, screw you, 2020, 2021, here we go. And this third wave, oh no, keep your masks on. You're not allowed to do this. You're not allowed to travel into. It's like, your wings are clipped. So what do we? You got to find other ways. And this is why this has been really, this whole bucket list thing has been really interesting for a lot of people, because there are a lot of people who've been a tourist in their own hometown. They've rediscovered things like, down here, surfing, mountain biking, all this local stuff that people can do, which has been really cool.
Yeah.
And it's helped people learn new skills, new instruments. That's one thing that when I did the book, I'm 47. I'm going to grow up at some stage, but for getting the book done, because I reward myself, I bought myself some DJ decks.
Awesome. That's super cool.
I'm learning all of that right now. And one of the things that I want to do is DJ party this year. Awesome.
I love it. I love how you've really just simplified it all.
Yeah. Yeah, so I bought those. I'm learning that, and the cool thing is I find flow in it too. So I'm like I just get lost, and then like 3 hours have gone. I go, where the hell did that go? And like, so I love it. I can't play a musical instrument to save myself, but I can play those.
That's cool.
And it's a creative outlet. I'll do another book this year. I want to swim with the whale sharks this year. Stand-up comedy. I'll probably solo skydive too. So
Awesome.
they're the kind of things I think. All right, they're doable. Don't have to really go outside of Australia to do any of that. I can do it kind of locally. Whale shark doesn't hang around where I am, but I've got to go somewhere else in Australia to knock that one off. But these are all very doable things. Learning Spanish is another one. So they're the most immediate ones that I can think of.
That's super cool, Trav. I love it. I love everything that you've set up, the simplicity behind the whole thing. I love how you've also got the intention to take the action towards all these goals. This has just been amazing. It's been a trip for me to listen to because I'm someone who is very goal oriented. And I believe anyway that I'm someone that takes action, but I just love the way that you've mapped it out and made it really easy for anyone to do. And I'm definitely going to take a lot of these steps that you've kind of lined up for us. I'm going to move us on to the next segment of our show just because we've been talking for a bit. And thank you for all the nuggets of gold that you've kind of dropped so far. But this second section that I call the fire round, I'm just going to fire a couple questions off at you. Trav, do you have a favorite quote that you live by?
Yeah. There it is. If you can see it. It says, if it is to be, it is up to me.
If it is to be, it is up to me. I love that.
So for those listening, not watching, look at that. It's got even a rainbow on it. Look at that. Boom. So if it is to be, it is up to me. My old swimming coach sort of, gave us that level of, sort of ingrained that, I guess, at a really early age of taking responsibility, not blaming anyone else, not using excuses, but take ownership over your own life. And, and that's probably led me to be an entrepreneur as well. And like I got that, when I, at a time in my life when I needed to take responsibility more so. So if it is to be, it is up to me. That's one. And there's a Bob Dylan quote that I love. I saw this on the back of a dunny door, of a toilet door in a youth hostel in Tasmania, Australia, after doing a big hike with my dad. And I don't know why we stayed at a youth hostel, but anyway, and it was a Bob Dylan quote. It was scratched on into the door, and it said, "A man is a success when he wakes up in the morning and goes to bed at night and does what he wants to in between."
Wow. I love that. And I love the story of how you came across that as well. I mean, that's amazing. It really is. I've just been having a blast with this whole conversation, Trav. What is one lesson that you have learned recently, whether it be through a mistake or success?
Good question. I'm in business all the time, and I have learned recently that it's really important as a leader to get better people around you and to delegate better and to be a better leader, and I've undervalued that. And like I realized about 4 months ago because we've got now certified bucket list coaches. I'm founder CEO of that as well. So we've got certified bucket list coaches now in 22 countries around the world teaching this stuff. They buy a license. And I've got a team that helps them develop a business, like a life coaching business, but without saying life coaching, it's a bucket list coach business. And I realized that every conversation for the business was basically going through me, and I was bottlenecking the shit out of it. So I got out of my own way, and I put some people in place and unblocked it. And now it made me happier like overnight.
Very
So
cool.
trusting other people, getting good people on, and not being the one that remove your ego. Not being the one that all the decisions need to go through.
That's amazing. That's
Letting
also
go,
something.
mate. Letting go. Throw yourself off the waterfall in your kayak.
I love it. Yeah, I actually had a conversation with a good buddy of mine this morning about that exact same thing, and how I'm also trying to implement that more in my life. Trav, do you have a favorite book or a current book that you're reading, or just anything that's kind of inspired you along the way?
Oh, there's so many. I'm reading 50. One of the things on my bucket list is reading 52 books in a year. So, the funny thing about that is, and I joke about it, it started at War and Peace. War and Peace is like a full-on thick, small textbook.
Yeah.
And I swear I'm going to start off with War and Peace and wade through that and end up with like a Mr. Men, like Mr. Tickle book or something like that. It's going to be like, like super, they're going to get smaller and smaller and smaller and bigger text.
Yeah.
As they go down
it's going to finish with 10 Dr. Seuss books.
Yeah, the cat sat on the mat, and
yeah, that's super cool.
Just to knock it out. Yeah, but no, I'm reading. Look, I'll go to the most present one right now, and that's by my mate Andrew Griffiths, and it's someone. The title of the book, I haven't got it on me here, but it's called Someone Has to Be the Most Expensive. Why not make it you?
Very cool.
Very cool. I love. What else have we got here? This was a big one. Happier by Ben-Shahar. That's a really good book. He's a really good positive psychologist. That's a really good one for the mental game. There's a book here, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. You don't really have to read the book. Just says it right there. So anyway, there's heaps. I read a lot night. But the number one book I think everyone needs to read is
My Bucket List Blueprint. No, I definitely, I want to check out your book for sure. I'm also a big reader. I've had to read 52 books on my bucket list for 3 years now. And every year I've hovered between like 28 and 32. So I've got to crack down a little bit more on my own reading, but I'm also still, yeah, I'm still pretty proud of kind of where I've come, because before that I was reading like one book every 5 years. So I've definitely had a good step in the right direction, but I've got to also increase my reading capacity. But I definitely also want to check out your book, and highly recommend anybody else who is interested in reading and also just interested in the bucket list, for sure, check out Trav's book. If you could go back in time to any time in your life and give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be?
Yeah, you often get this question, what would you say to your 18-year-old self? Yeah, stay out of the nightclubs would be one of the, don't blow all your money. Look, I've got two 14-year-old boys. I've got a 22-year-old daughter, a 24-year-old boy as well, and so I'm giving advice to my former self to a certain extent. And the cool thing is they're sponges for it too, and it's the sort of stuff that I didn't get taught when I was younger. But try as many things as you possibly can while you're young. Go on the gap year, especially in America. I think that's been there's a big push for a compulsory gap year. So you go travel the world for a year, and that breeds tolerance and acceptance and a whole bunch, and it makes us less insular, makes us more open. And there's a whole bunch of opportunities that come your way as a result of, things like a gap year. But don't try and get hung up on finding your purpose at 21 years of age. Like, go out and try and test a whole bunch of different things. Give it 6 to 12 months and see where your passions lie after that. Definitely run your own business. And I think that can teach so many cool lessons that you just don't get if you're an employee. And also the other thing would be to, get into the property market as soon as you possibly can, buy a house as soon as you possibly can. But also, last piece of advice is unsubscribe and unfollow everyone that you can, and identify 1 to 4 people that personify a particular goal that you've got in your life, and just follow them, read their stuff, pay to play. If they're running a program, then do it. Read their books, read their autobiography, understand their psychology. If they're accessible or not accessible, it doesn't matter, but zero in on what your goals are, then follow those people and understand their psychology of what it took to get them to where they're at. Because if you hang around their ecosystem enough, you'll understand their psychology pretty quickly.
I love that.
And that's really understated, because we're so distracted by so many other influences. It's like none of them serve our purpose. None of them, a lot of them don't serve our goals. So zero in on the goals, then find the people that best personify that, the best role models, the best examples of that, and then get into their world. And I'm forever saying that, and that helps you just put those blinkers on for that particular area of your life. And so, I'll give you an example. My 14-year-old boys, they're twin boys, and they're right into computers, gamers, but they're fit as well. They're not like just these, cave-dwelling gamers. They're actually fit, and thank God. And I went down to James the other day, and I said, "Mate, what are you working on?" He goes, "Oh, well, you always said if school's not providing me with the stimulation, or I'm not getting challenged." And they're smart kids too. I don't know where they got that from, but they're smart kids. And I said, if school's not challenging you enough, mate, challenge yourself. Find other courses online and this sort of thing. So I went down the other day. "Oh, what are you working on, mate?" He goes, "Oh, I'm coding." I went, "Right." And I said, "What do you mean?" "I'm learning Python coding. It's a coding language." I've got no idea. And I mean, how many languages are there? The main languages. About 6 or 7. And he said, "Yeah, and this is what Elon started with," he said. And I went, "Oh dear, what have we got?" And he knows everything about Elon Musk. Like, we bought him his order. He's 14. He bought and now he's learnt 3 coding languages because they're the ones Elon started with.
Wow.
And now he's starting to pay attention to Jeff Bezos and what he started with. And because I've always said, don't look at their accolades now. Don't look at, they're running the Teslas and the Amazons and these sorts of things now. Look at how they started. There's signs in that journey is very accessible if you get into the psychology and the backstory and the origin of where they came from. And so, he's obsessed with Elon Musk. Whenever we go past a Tesla, he's all over it. He knows too much about it, and to the point where I'm surprising both of them actually with a test drive of a new Falcon Wing Tesla in the next couple of weeks, and they don't know it yet. So this is going to be.
That's super cool. Trav, that's amazing. And this has just been, again, one of my favorite episodes so far. I have personally gained so much knowledge. One of the other things that I try to do with this podcast is I try to produce value as well. So is there anything that you're personally focusing on that I might be able to help with, or that maybe one of my listeners could help you out with?
Oh, mate, of course I'm going to mention the book and stuff. And, I it's January now, but I squeezed to get that out before the end of the year because I couldn't bear for me to write on my to do for 2021. I couldn't bear for another year after writing it for 5 years, finish the book, become an author. So I finished it. I think we got it out 2 to 3 weeks before Christmas, just gone. And it went to Amazon bestseller on Kindle, which is really cool in a bunch of different categories. And one was adventure travel too. So there was a whole bunch of adventurers books that I toppled, which was good. But that was a bonus. But the point is, got it done, and I've been signing all these copies, and sending them out around the world over the last, through from launching it through Christmas and New Year's. And I think it's now that it's getting into people's hands, you can actually go through the My Bucket List Blueprint framework in it and write your bucket list and write your reverse bucket list and all that stuff that I've just talked about. You can just, I want you to write this with your pen and just absolutely abuse it. And then there's a little link at the back end of it where you can take a photo of your bucket list that you've written down and send it to me. And what I'm doing is basically writing book number 2, which is like 365 bucket lists of people from all different walks of life. So I'm collecting that at the moment. So, yeah, if people want to get a copy, I'll sign a copy. And I'm sure you put the link in there, mate. It's thebucketlistguy.com/book.
That's awesome. So for anybody out there, please, let's all go check out. I'm also going to order it as soon as I'm done with this call. Go check out mybucketlistguide.com and get a copy of this book. And let's all just write down our bucket list. We'll send it to Trav. Maybe it'll make it into the second version or the second book. But either way, the whole concept here, guys, is get your goals out on paper, get your gratitude for your past bucket list out on paper. And I think this book is the perfect tool for this. Trav, is there anywhere else for people to reach out to you, whether on social media or something like that, if someone wanted to connect with you?
Yeah, man. And yeah, probably Instagram, bucketlistguide.com, bucketlistguide.travbell. I've followed you've followed me, and yeah, we're basically connected on there. And I think the gram is where it's at right now. And then all people can go to, the bucketlistguide.com or bucketlistcoach.com if they want to suss out becoming a bucket list coach and join our tribe around the world. So, but put the word, the bucket list guide, and you'll find me somewhere, I'm sure.
The bucket list guy. I love that. Trav, again, thank you so very much for your time today. This has been an incredible interview. Again, one of my most favorite interviews so far. I have learned a ton, and I think all of my listeners out here are going to walk away with some value added for listening to this conversation. And for you guys out there listening, if you did get value out of this, I please highly encourage you to share this out with someone else who might need to hear this, with a family member, with a friend, anybody who might be, feeling a little depressed or just living life to the fullest that also might need this bucket list guide. And yeah, anyway, just please share it out to anybody that you think might need to hear this. Thank you guys all so very much for listening. I'm Nick Troutman signing off, wishing you all an awesome day. Cheers.